$150 billion is nearly double what the U.S. spent on FDR's New Deal in inflation-adjusted terms. It's 8 times more than the U.S. spent on the Marshall Plan rebuilding Europe after World War II. It's more than we spent on NASA, the race to the moon, or the Iraq, Vietnam, or Korean wars. And the stimulus plan is only the tip of the iceberg. When you add in the bailout lending for Citigroup and skyrocketing federal deficits, the U.S. government is spending $10 trillion it doesn't have over the next few years. Whether the government borrows it or prints it, an increase that big in the money supply is going to do only one thing: send inflation through the roof. The last time the U.S. government tried to spend its way out of a recession, in the 1970s, the inflation rate increased by 500%, from a 70-year average of only 2.5% to a high of 13.5% in 1979. Check out this chart. The government spending in the 1970s is practically zero when compared to what the U.S. government is spending today. In the past 12 months alone, the U.S. government, both Republicans and Democrats, has promised to spend $7.4 trillion in bailouts. According to Bloomberg.com, this includes $1.8 trillion in net portfolio commercial paper funding through the Fed, $1.4 trillion in FDIC liquidity guarantees, $700 billion in the Troubled Asset Release Program, TARP, $200 billion for the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac bailout, $128 billion for the AIG loans, $139 billion loan guarantees for General Electric, among others, as you can see. And here's the thing. Hyperinflation is not as rare as governments would like you to believe. Whenever a government spends far more than it takes in, the risk of hyperinflation is there. It wipes out the value of accumulated savings, leaving even affluent people penniless. It happened in Zimbabwe in 2008, Turkey in 2007, Romania in 2005, Argentina in 2001, and Russia in 1994, just to name a few. That's why you need to take steps right now to protect your retirement savings from the ravages of hyperinflation. Currency depreciation, inflation, robs retirement pensions and all savings, but most people don't notice because it is gradual up to the later stages when it's already too late. In your copy of Surviving a Global Financial Crisis and Currency Collapse, you will learn some practical, real-world strategies you can put into place right now that will help you get through the worst financial catastrophe to strike America in its history. I will also show you how to protect your family's privacy from illegal surveillance. The U.S. Constitution protects citizens against unlawful search and seizure. U.S. courts have long insisted that police agencies must have probable cause that a crime has been committed before they can search through your home, subpoena your bank records, tap your private telephone calls, and so on. But in the name of catching terrorists and tax cheats, all these constitutional protections are being flagrantly, often illegally, ignored by many government agencies. Laws that were designed to catch terrorists are now being used instead for domestic spying in the U.S. Illegal investigations of political organizations, monitoring of bank accounts and credit card companies, routine scanning of private emails and web browsing, tracking vehicle movements, and lots more. Both liberal and conservative organizations are outraged at the current scope of government surveillance, which now far exceeds anything George Orwell imagined in his chilling anti-authoritarian polemic, 1984. Worse, the U.S. Patriot Act now requires tens of thousands of private businesses, from banks and brokerages to credit card companies and precious metal dealers, literally to spy on their customers for the government. In the name of catching money launderers and terrorists, the government forces private businesses to report any unusual activity involving transactions over $3,000. And all the data is fed into a massive government supercomputer known as the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. What's more, if employees of these businesses warn their customers about these spying activities, they could go to prison. You see, it's a sad fact, but in the eyes of power-mad government bureaucrats, ordinary citizens are guilty until proven innocent, and they're pushing for new, expanded police powers that will include mandatory fingerprinting, iris scans, DNA sampling of all citizens, national biometric ID cards, transponder tracking of vehicles for mileage taxes, even geographical tracking of citizens through microchip implants. The potential for abuse and illegal snooping is massive and is already occurring. 2 years ago, the U.S. Senate held hearings about possibly revoking the Patriot Act because of revelations that the FBI was routinely and illegally gathering telephone, email, and financial records of ordinary Americans without proper authorization. Fortunately, there are now steps you can take. 100% legal steps routinely used by Hollywood celebrities and the super wealthy to shield yourself from government snoops and identity thieves who want to illegally invade your privacy. For example, federal law now requires that you report every bank or brokerage account you have outside the U.S. if the combined total in such accounts exceeds $10,000, or you face up to 5 years in prison and a fine of $500,000. However, the wealthy have long used an investment vehicle that is exempt from such reporting requirements: offshore life insurance policies. A life insurance policy purchased from a foreign carrier is not considered a foreign bank, security, or other financial account, and therefore not subject to U.S. reporting laws. What's more, offshore insurance policies are invisible to the asset tracking services used by private investigators and government snoops in the U.S. They allow you to take advantage of tax-advantaged investments in offshore funds not accessible to U.S. investors. They also enable you to diversify into non-U.S. dollar assets that may gain in the event of future declines in the U.S. dollar, economy, or markets. Best of all, offshore life insurance policies often have lower premium costs, better asset protection than their U.S. counterparts, zero tax on policy earnings, and the same provisions for tax-free borrowing and tax-free receipt of death benefit as ordinary U.S. insurance policies. In a word, they are the perfect investment vehicle for those who want to escape the illegal prying of U.S. government snoops and predatory lawyers. Best of all, this remarkable private investment is easy. You may think an offshore annuity sounds complicated, but it's not. It's quick and easy. All it takes is one phone call, fax, or email, and the people handling the accounts all speak excellent English. I'll tell you all about this amazing offshore investment in your copy of Surviving a Global Financial Crisis and Currency Collapse. Plus, I'll also reveal how to make 100% anonymous telephone calls. Prepaid wireless cell phones, widely used in Europe and now available in the U.S., make it impossible for government snoops to track your telephone calls. Available at many stores, these new phones don't require credit cards, credit checks, or the use of your real name. As a result, all of your phone calls are private and cannot be tracked back to you or end up in a big government database. How to bank safely and privately within the U.S. Easy legal steps you can take to keep your money invisible to government snoops. How to avoid leaving a digital trail with credit card purchases, and what you need to know about new anonymous prepaid credit cards. How to make your real estate litigation and IRS seizure-proof. If you think a problem is suspected, foreseen, or probable, you can safeguard your home now. Plus, there's a simple way you can legally avoid probate and staggering estate taxes. This strategy lets you pass the lion's share of your wealth to your loved ones and not to a greedy government. You'll also learn the biggest mistakes people make on their computers that leave them vulnerable to prying eyes. And much, much more to ensure your financial privacy as it's meant to be. Plus, I want to show you how you can still enjoy a prosperous retirement. Times of great economic upheaval present rare opportunities for investors to make enormous, staggering, life-altering profits not possible at any other time. People forget that many fortunes were made during the Great Depression. For example, Joseph Kennedy, the patriarch of the Kennedy dynasty, made his fortune during the 1930s, shorting the stock market and investing in rock-bottom real estate that soared in value after World War II. To make money during an economic crisis, however, you have to identify hidden opportunities that others are overlooking. If you had invested $10,000 in the S&P index at the start of 2002, you'd have seen the market plummet from 1165.27 to 712 by 2009. That's a total net wipeout of minus 38.8% over 7 years. Even today, with the S&P back to the 1200 level, when you factor in inflation, your $10,000 investment has lost money for 8 years. But if you had invested that same $10,000 in gold coins, as we recommended in January 2002 when the price of gold fell to just $275 per ounce, today your investment would be worth $51,709 less commissions. That's a 417% return on your money, or a 22.8% average annual return for 8 years. And here's the good news. I'm convinced we're going to see similar eye-popping profits in the next several years. As the government depreciates the value of the U.S. dollar, inflation goes through the roof, and the price of gold continues to skyrocket. And I'll show you how to cash in on select gold and energy stocks. Of course, for those people uncomfortable building a stash of Krugerrands and American Eagles, you can also cash in on rising precious metals and commodity prices with select stocks. Over the past few years, most of our stock recommendations have been in gold and silver mining companies and energy companies, including Cameco, up 215% in 24 months. I first recommended this uranium stock in the November 2004 issue when it was selling for around $16.41 a share. By May 1st, 2000.